A 7-night Danube cruise can cost you around $2,000 on one line and well over $10,000 on another. It is the same river, the same castles, and nearly the same week floating past them. So you would assume the expensive one is simply better and the cheap one is the trap. It is not that simple, and for a traveler over 65, it is barely the right question at all. What actually matters is which of these lines is built for how you travel now. It comes down to your needs, your budget, and whether you are sailing solo or with someone. And it comes down to one thing the brochures never mention. What happens to your money if your health changes between the day you book and the day you board? Those things reshuffle the whole list, and they push some very famous names a lot lower than the advertising would ever put them. So I went through what experienced river cruisers say about every major line, the praise and the complaints both, and ranked them worst to best for travelers over 65. The line at number 1 does something none of the big names do. It hands you cash to go eat lunch in a real European village, and it does not charge you double for the crime of traveling alone. None of these lines will ruin your trip, so think of this as a ranking about fit, not a final word on quality. Starting at the very bottom, number 10, CroisiEurope. Here is a paradox to open with. The line propping up the rest of this list runs more ships than Viking does, and it has sailed these rivers longer than almost anyone since the mid-1970s. It is French, family-owned, and the cheapest serious option on the water by a wide margin. So why does it land dead last? Because it is built for European travelers, mostly French speakers, and an American or British senior can end up feeling like the odd one out. There are fewer English-speaking guides. The announcements and menus lean French first. The cabins run smaller and older than the polished lines higher up. In its defense, and it has a real one, the food is excellent, true French cooking rather than banquet hall filler. The ships also reach the little rivers and canals the big fleets cannot physically fit on, so you see places the famous lines never go. The handful of Americans I have come across who sailed it, often the only ones aboard, told me the crew went out of its way to make them feel at home. So if you speak a little French, or you have already done the standard Rhine and Danube and you want something different and far cheaper, CroisiEurope is a hidden gem. For a first-timer over 65 who wants ease and English and a little hand-holding, it lands last. The same logic applies to the German and Austrian value lines like A Rosa, Nico, and Amadeus. Travelers report saving thousands over Viking on nearly identical routes. The crews speak English just fine, you just will not be coddled in it. Number 9, Riviera Travel, the one to know if you sail solo. If you travel on your own these days, this line belongs on your short list for a single reason. Riviera is a British company built around value with prices well below the premium brands, and what you get is solid and well organized rather than dazzling. The ships are clean and modern, the food is good without trying to be a culinary event, and the itineraries hit all the rivers you want to see. The reason it matters for our crowd is the solo traveler. If you are widowed or you simply travel alone now, most river lines charge a single supplement that can run close to double the per-person price, as though one person occupying a cabin were something to be penalized. Riviera trims that supplement right down on a lot of its sailings. For a solo senior watching the budget, that one policy can decide whether you go at all or stay home another year. The trade-off is that the onboard feeling can read a little like a group coach tour, and the excursion choices are more fixed than the flexible lines higher up. But for a first river cruise where you want no surprises at a fair price, Riviera earns its place. At number 8, Emerald Cruises. Picture the most modern-looking ship in the mid-price range, and you are picturing this one. Emerald is the more affordable sister brand to Scenic, and the ships feel like a boutique hotel that happens to float. Clean lines, big windows, and a pool up on the top deck that converts into an open-air cinema after dark, which is a lovely touch on a warm evening. The upper deck cabins have those floor-to-ceiling windows that slide down so your balcony is essentially inside the room, which means fresh air without giving up the space. For the price, the value is hard to argue with, and they have been adding routes on the Douro and the Rhone, so there is more choice than there was a year ago. The catch with Emerald is consistency and personal attention. The crew to guest ratio is lower than the luxury lines, which means fewer hands on deck when you need help, and the service quality swings from one sailing to the next. Some passengers rave about it. Others come home describing rush tours and uneven dining on the very same ship. And a few of the better excursions cost extra, the kind the top lines fold into the fare. None of that is a deal breaker. Just know going in that the savings come with a little less of the steady, attentive service that matters more as the years add up, not less. Number 7, Grand Circle and its small group cousin, Overseas Adventure Travel. This one has a quiet advantage that almost no ranking ever mentions. Grand Circle is a Boston company built specifically, deliberately for older American travelers, and the people who sail it are some of the most loyal in the business. The ships are smaller and a touch older, often around 125 passengers, and the staff learn your name by the second day. Their itineraries frequently run longer than the 8-day cruises elsewhere, 14 days or more, for a price that competes with the shorter trips. Measured per day on the water, you are getting a great deal of vacation. Two things make it a senior favorite. First, they offer real solo cabins with a low supplement or none at all, which puts them in the small club that does right by people traveling alone. Second, the whole culture of the company is aimed squarely at this age group, so nothing about it feels like you wandered onto a party boat by accident. I know a woman who took several of these trips, got paired with a roommate on the very first one, and the two of them are still cruising together past their 20th sailing. They also tend to handle the things outside their control gracefully, like low water that forces a night in a hotel without leaving you stranded. The ships are not luxurious and the rooms are modest. But for honest value, real comfort, and being treated as a person rather than a booking number, Grand Circle punches far above its price. Number 6 is where the real argument starts, and it is Viking. Viking is the most famous river cruise line on Earth, and that is almost entirely down to advertising. If you watch television in America, you have seen the commercials 100 times, and that marketing has made Viking the automatic first choice for millions of people. So why is the biggest name only halfway up a list built for the exact audience it spends all that money chasing? Because famous and best are not the same thing, and the people who have sailed the better lines will tell you so without blinking. Start with what Viking does well, because I have been aboard and it earns that loyalty for real reasons. The ships are adults only, no children anywhere on board, which for a great many seniors is the entire point of the trip. The Scandinavian design is calm and handsome and easy to live in, and the logistics are superb. When a flight collapses or a river runs low, Viking's sheer size means they sort it out, swap you onto a sister ship, rebook your connections, and quietly take care of you, often at their own expense. Travelers tell story after story of exactly that. Their defenders also make a fair point about the food. There is always a reliable base menu you can order if the regional dishes of the day are not to your taste. The competence is real and it buys a lot of forgiveness. Now, the part the commercials leave out, and it is a long list. The food gets called bland and safe by people who have eaten on the better lines, and at Viking's price, fine is not what you think you are paying for. The beds are famously firm, though a steward will bring a softer topper if you ask, so say something the first evening rather than suffering through a week of it. The included touring is usually just one walking tour per port, and it moves at the pace of the slowest walker in a large group filing along behind an umbrella, which sounds inclusive right up until you are the one being rushed or the one left waiting. Because the long ships often cannot dock right beside the old town, you can find yourself bussed in from a distance or tied up alongside another ship and walking through its lobby to reach the shore, which is no small thing when stairs and gangways are already a challenge. The dining room can get loud enough that hard-of-hearing travelers struggle to follow the conversation at their own table, and the extra excursions, the good ones beyond that single daily walk, are priced steeply, so the real cost creeps up well past the advertised fare. Then there is the money, which is the real trap. Viking asks for your full payment far earlier than most lines, sometimes the better part of a year out, and the cancellation terms are unforgiving. I have talked to couples who lost eight, even $10,000 when life simply intervened, a health scare, a war flaring up near the route, a trip they could not get refunded. One couple I spoke with booked a river cruise for their 50th anniversary, turned up to discover the river had been too low to sail for months, and spent the week being buzzed 8 to 10 hours a day with their legs swelling in the heat, then were offered $1,500 against a future cruise on a trip that had cost them over $10,000. So here is the verdict, and it is the heart of this whole video. Frequent cruisers half joke that Viking is the McDonald's of river cruising, consistent, recognizable on every corner, and never the best meal in town. It is a safe, comfortable, well-run first river cruise, and if calm, predictable, adults only is what you are after, you will most likely have a lovely time. But it is not the luxury the price and the ads imply, and those financial terms are the real danger for an older traveler whose plans can change overnight. So do one thing without fail. Buy a real travel insurance policy the day you book, the kind that actually covers a medical cancellation, not the flimsy cruise line waiver. That one move neutralizes the only Viking trap that truly hurts. Number 5. Avalon Waterways, and it is all about the view. Avalon solves a problem you did not know you had, and once you have slept in one of their cabins, you cannot unsee it. Most river ships shove your bed against a side wall. The first time I woke up in an Avalon cabin, I understood the fuss because the bed faces the window and the entire outer wall is glass that opens into an open-air balcony stretching the full width of the room. You wake up looking straight at a castle or a vineyard sliding past, not at a wardrobe. And here is the part that matters if your mobility is limited. On the days a long walk is too much and you would rather rest, you are not shut in a dark box. You are lying in bed watching Europe drift by the window. On a trip whose whole appeal is the scenery, that turns a missed excursion into a good morning anyway. Avalon also carries fewer passengers than Viking on the same size hull, often around 160 rather than nearly 200, and you feel that everywhere. Shorter lines, smaller tour groups, more elbow room at breakfast, all of which matter more, not less, when you are not 25 anymore. The line markets hard on active excursions, the biking and the hiking, and that scares some older travelers off. Do not let it scare you off. The gentle options sit right there alongside the active ones, and plenty of guests who would never touch a bike say the relaxed pace suited them perfectly. One more advantage worth knowing. Avalon belongs to the Globus Tour family, so they can attach a fully guided land tour to the front or back of your cruise and handle every transfer and hotel for you, which is a gift when the logistics of a do-it-yourself trip start to feel like more work than holiday. Comfortable, uncrowded, and that room with the view. Avalon is an easy one to fall for. Number 4, and now we are into real luxury, Scenic. I have sailed Scenic, and I went a full week without opening my wallet once, which for an older traveler is the whole appeal. Their promise is that everything is included, and unlike some lines that say it, they mean it. The fare covers all your meals, all your drinks, including the good spirits, every excursion, all the gratuities, a butler for every suite, and an electric bike to borrow and port if the mood takes you. The value there is not really about the dollars. It is the absence of friction. There is no daily sales pitch and no signing for every glass of wine. For a retiree on a fixed income, never once having to watch a running bar tab is its own kind of vacation. You paid up front, now you relax, and that peace of mind is worth a great deal at this stage. The ships are spacious, the cabins among the largest on the rivers, with a sun lounge that converts to a private balcony at the press of a button so you can take the air without the weather taking you. The butler is not just for show either. They will book your dining, handle your laundry, and sort the small problems before they become your problems. The scenic and rich evenings, private concerts staged in historic halls, are the sort of thing you are still describing to the grandchildren years later, and the electric bikes are a smart touch for a senior who wants to range a little further in port without the strain of the walk back. Guests who sail Scenic tend to sail it again and refuse to look at anything else. The complaints exist though, so here they are. Scenic is expensive, and a minority of travelers find it a shade formal, even gaudy, more black tie than they bargained for, and it is not bulletproof. I read one account of a Christmas market sailing where the markets were rushed, the food was mediocre, the service was stretched thin, and the whole week unraveled. A fair reminder that no line is immune and any single cruise can go wrong. But week in and week out, for a senior who wants real luxury with none of the constant upselling, Scenic delivers it about as completely as anyone on the river. Number 3 is the food champion, AmaWaterways. Ask experienced river cruisers which line sets the best table, and the answer comes back so consistently it is almost dull, AmaWaterways. And this is not marketing fluff you can wave away. Ama is the only river cruise line ever inducted into La Chaîne des Rôtisseurs, the oldest food and wine society in the world. The Chef's Table restaurant runs a multi-course tasting menu that would hold its own against a fine dining room on land, and the wines are poured by people who know the vineyards you are floating past. If a memorable meal is a real part of the vacation for you, and at this age it often is, this is the one. But the reason Ama sits this high for our audience specifically is not the food at all. It is the excursions, and having sailed it myself, I think this is the single most senior-friendly feature in all of river cruising. Ama offers multiple tours at every single port, sorted by how much walking you are up for, from a slow, gentle stroll to a serious bike ride with several speeds in between. Think hard about what that means at 65 or 75. You and your spouse no longer have to move at the same pace, and neither of you has to hold up a group or get left behind. One of you takes the easy walk, the other takes the long climb, and you meet back at the ship for dinner with stories to trade. After you have sailed a line that gives you that, the single-pace lines feel like a straitjacket. Ama also takes wellness seriously for this age group, with a dedicated wellness host running gentle fitness sessions and stretch classes, which keeps the body moving without overdoing it. Many of their ships carry the twin balcony cabins too, with both a step-out balcony and a French balcony, so you get the air and the view both, and the family-owned warmth shows right down to the daily happy hour where the crew remembers your drink. 2 small catches, and they are small. Ama is not fully all-inclusive, so premium spirits and a handful of excursions cost extra, and it is popular enough that the best sailings sell out a year or more ahead, so you book early or you miss the date you wanted. Minor prices to pay for what is, for an active-minded senior who cares about food and flexibility, very close to the perfect river cruise. Number 2 is Uniworld, and it nearly took the crown. Step onto a Uniworld ship, and the first thing you notice is that it looks like nothing else on the water. Every ship is individually designed to suit the region it sails, with real art on the walls, marble in the bathrooms, and handmade beds, the kind of interior people describe by saying it is the exact opposite of flat-pack furniture. For an older traveler, that handmade bed and that proper bathroom are not vanity. They are the difference between sleeping well for a week and not. It feels like a floating boutique hotel that someone cared about. And it is all-inclusive in the ways that count. An open bar all day long, gratuities handled, very nearly every excursion covered. The crew-to-guest ratio is among the highest on the rivers, the service deeply personal, and the touring groups noticeably smaller than the big crowds filing off the mass-market ships. I know solo women in their 70s who have done a dozen Uniworld cruises and will not consider another line, and once you have sailed it, you understand where that devotion comes from. Now, because this channel does not write brochures, there is a real knock here, and you should know it before you fall for the photos. Uniworld was bought some years back by a large travel corporation, and a number of longtime fans say the polish has slipped a touch since the odd corner cut, communication that is not what it used to be. But I have also heard from people who came off the Douro and the Bordeaux sailings underwhelmed, telling me the all-inclusive wine list was thinner than promised, the headline Chateau excursion cost extra after all, and they could barely get a straight answer about what was included. So here is the fair way to hold it. Uniworld at its best is as beautiful and as luxurious as river cruising gets, and the great majority of guests do get its best. Just go in knowing that the individual ship and the individual sailing matter as much as the brand name, and read the recent reviews for your specific route before you commit. Number 2 on this list, and on a different week, it could just as easily be number 1. And the best river cruise line for a traveler over 65 is TALK. If you do not know the name, that is by design. TALK does not run flashy commercials. They have been perfecting guided travel since 1925, and they let their guests do the advertising for them, which the guests happily do because the repeat booking rate is among the very highest in the entire travel industry. Once people sail talk, they tend to stop shopping around altogether, and just about every talk regular I have spoken to will tell you the same. For a traveler over 65, it is the line that gets the most things right at the same time. Start with truly all-inclusive, the honest version of it. Every meal, every drink right up to the top shelf liquor, every excursion, every gratuity, every transfer, all of it already in the fare. The ships are small, often well under 130 guests, built and run for talk by a Swiss company called Scylla that makes some of the finest vessels on the rivers, so the public rooms never feel crowded and the crew has the time to know who you are. The payment schedule is normal too, not the pay a year ahead squeeze, which lowers your financial risk if your plans have to change. And then the detail I teased at the very start, the one that tells you everything about how this company thinks. On port days, talk does not herd you back to the ship for lunch. They hand you money to go find a local restaurant, sit down in a real village, and eat like a resident, and the guides will point you to exactly the right place. You walk off the boat with cash in your pocket, find a tiny family-run spot the guide swears by, and have schnitzel and a local wine while the river you just sailed drifts past the window. No other line does that as standard, and it is the difference between seeing Europe from a boat and living in it for a week. Two more things land especially hard for our audience. Talk gets you into places earlier or later than the daytime crush, private museum openings, after-hours access to a landmark, which spares you the elbow-to-elbow, phone-in-the-air tourist mob that wears an older traveler out faster than anything. And every single riverboat keeps a cabin category with no solo surcharge at all, so a widowed or single traveler is not punished for sailing alone. Put that whole combination together and you can see why it wins. It is small and personal, fair on payment, fair to solo travelers, and it walks you past the crowds into rooms most tourists never see, with guides experienced enough to feel like friends by the last night. That is almost the exact list of things that matter most at this stage of life, which is no accident, because Talk's typical guest skews older and the company has spent a century learning what that traveler wants. The only real knock is the price. Talk sits right at the top end of the market, and it does not pretend otherwise. But because it is truly all-inclusive, the gap to the lines that nickel and dime you is a good deal smaller than the sticker suggests, and you are not doing anxious math in your head all week long. If you can afford it, it is the most complete, the most relaxed, and the most senior-friendly river cruise in Europe. That is why it sits at number 1. So there is the full list, worst to best for travelers over 65, and notice what decided the order. It was not the size of the fleet, and it was not the budget for the television ads. It came down to the quieter things the brochures skip. Does the line punish you for traveling alone, or does it treat you fairly? Can you set your own walking pace, or are you locked to the slowest person in the group? And the big one, the question nobody asks until it is too late, if your health gives out the week before you sail, do you lose everything you paid? Those are the things that reshuffled the whole ranking. The most advertised name in the business landed square in the middle. The one most people have never even heard of landed on top. Pick the line that fits how you travel now, not the one with the catchiest jingle, and you will get the trip you actually paid for instead of the one the brochure sold you. Now it is your turn. Tell me in the comments which line you have actually sailed and whether it earned the spot I gave it or whether I got it completely wrong, because a ranking like this one is really just an argument waiting to happen, and I would rather have it out with you than without you.